Welcome back to the Better Divorce Podcast. I'm thrilled you're here. Entering into fall, into holiday season now. This is a big time when a lot of people start to shift from the wedding is over, the marriage isn't healthy, and I don't know if I want to spend a new year married to this person and co-parenting with this person or parenting with this person. So today we're going to dig into the topic of parenting. So I welcome today a very educated, incredibly poised expert, Todd Sarner. He's a parenting coach and a psychotherapist with over 20 years of experience. That's a lot, helping families create a more connected, calm, and cooperative home. A former faculty member at the Newfield Institute, Todd has guided more than 2,000 families through the daily struggles of parenting, and we all know what that's like. Power struggles, meltdowns, and family stress. Should I keep going? No, but you know what they are. Always with an attachment first lens. He's the director of transformative parenting and the author of the upcoming book. So get your notebook, The Calm and Connected Parent, an attachment first guide to raising resilient kids in the age of screens and AI. So welcome to the show, Todd. I'm so glad you're
Thank
here.
you. Thank you for having me, Paulette. I've been accused of a lot of things, but poised. I'm going to go tell my fiance that one right away after
Yeah.
we speak.
You are, definitely. No schlep, as they say.
Yes, no
My
schlep
father
zone.
had a lot of Jewish friends, and I grew up hearing Yiddish all the time. I didn't know that it was a language when I was 4 years old. So, but then he would combine like Lou and bloody and still use like Yiddish words like chutzpah. And I'd be like, wait, what is that a word? So,
Yeah, my father was Jewish, and his mom, my grandma Estelle, boy, she had some words. I remember some of them.
it's interesting how culture in language sticks with you, when you hear a word.
Yeah,
Well, let's talk a little bit about this book first. I'm fascinated. This is really a
yeah.
topic. I'm going to reverse engineer this conversation. So tell me about the book because it's coming out November 18th, which is, probably, right around the corner when people will hear this. So I'm
Yeah.
dying to know what made you write it. Tell us about it again.
I've had a book in my brain in some way or another for a couple decades, and I just kept not doing it. Partially perfectionism, like, oh, I want to do it exactly the best perfect way, and a lot of my ways of seeing things in parenting and in couples work were so deeply influenced by my mentors like Dr. Gordon Neufeld, who took me under his wing when I was a new parent myself, Dr. Sue Johnson, who was my original teacher with couples counseling, that I wanted to make sure I had my own thing to say and that it wasn't just, repeating what they taught me, and Stan Tatkin and Daniel Siegel and all the great teachers I've learned from. And I think it was mostly from speaking to so many parents over the years. I mean, I've had over 2,000 parenting clients. I've done webinars. I've done in-person parenting talks since 2004. I think that the final straw was all the calls I'm getting from parents, the talks I'm having, reporters calling me about this new phase of screens and social media and AI. And it's not what the whole book is about, but it was just like I wanted to speak to the stresses and strains and unique things going on now because of social media and smartphones, AI. So it's really a parenting book that talks about who to be as a parent, because I think who to be as a parent is more important than what you do. And I know that sounds kind of philosophical or theoretical, but I got that from Dr. Neufeld early on, that decide who you want to be as a parent and strive to be that. And we can talk more details about what that is. And so I find that being a calm and connected parent is kind of the place to start from. And how do we do that? And how do we build a culture to support that? So it's a long-winded answer, Paulette, as I'm prone to do. But that was it. I just finally settled down and I went, I need to finish this and get it out there. And I feel good about it. I like how it's turned out. Actually, for people on video, I have a mock-up of the cover here. It's hard
I
to see,
love it. That's with the
but
tree.
But yeah, so that's the roots of it. It was a very long journey, and I'm not used to promoting myself, but I'm kind of proud of the book, and so I will do my best to put it out there.
As you should be. I've been an author myself. I know that painstaking pivot, juxtaposition of it has to be perfect. I don't want
Yeah,
to put it out into the world until it's every I is dotted, T is crossed, and the grammar, the punctuation, the cover, the color, the fonts, the testimonials. That like there's a lot of work that goes into creating a book. But on the other hand, other people just say, just get it out, just put it
yeah.
out there. Not that you want it to be, pardon the expression, half-assed, as I never knew what that meant. It was like, well, where's the other one? Like, how does that like?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a funny
we should
expression.
actually
We were
just talk
talking about
about
funny
that.
expressions earlier, so we're laughing. Little inside joke here, but it's so painstaking, right? My writing coach, one of them, Pat Verducci, when I was in Bali writing many years ago, she taught me the I think it's Mark Twain quote where writing is easy. You just sit down at the typewriter and bleed.
It
Of course,
was
that's when we just had typewriters too, but
I
that's true.
stopped numbering the revisions at some point because it was getting ridiculous. It was like version 12. I'm like, gosh. And my fiance will tell you, even we were on vacation. We went to Mexico over the summer, kind of researching our wedding, catering and stuff. And then we went to Jamaica, where her family is from on one side. And I was enjoying it, and I was there and I was in the moment. But then when I had like an opportunity, I was like, type, 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 I got to fix this chapter. I had an idea. But yeah, I'm looking forward to putting it out there in the world and seeing what people think.
Yeah, when I was writing a first book, I would wake up and go, oh, I remember that. Oh, like you'd have another nuance, another idea, another name, another memory. And you're like, and then
Exactly.
you're like, if you didn't write it down, you immediately go, oh, I forgot it. I lost it. It would come back to you. But we've
Yeah.
been there. If anyone's written a book, I know you're nodding because it's not easy. So, and I
It's
do
not.
recommend Kelly Nataris's book. It's called The Book You Were Born to Write. Kelly
Oh,
is
okay.
a
I
great
haven't heard that.
mentor of mine too. So shout out to you, Kelly. So let's get into this parenting world because of
Yeah.
tablets, smartphones, AI, social media. I really do thank God that my children just missed this. The youngest being 28, the 30th, oldest being almost 36. So they just kind of missed the wave of insanity. They had phones, but they were just phones. They worked to call people,
Yeah. Yeah.
or you could text and say, hey, I'm running late, have a good day at school, or you forgot your sneakers,
Yeah.
mom, I'm
That
hungry, bring me a
what
pizza. Like,
that's what they're
it
good
was
for.
very simple, but now it's just basically a computer in everyone's hands, and there's nothing they can't research or
A
find.
supercomputer. Yeah.
Yeah, and also the deeper layer of the dark web and the little closed chat rooms. And there's this kind of like world that, we didn't know about in parenting 15, 20 years ago that now is something parents have to deal with. We have three grandchildren that are 7, 4, and 1, and almost, no, 7, 4, and 1. And it terrifies me that, not terrifies me like I'm losing sleep over it, but it does give me a bit of anxiety thinking, wow, like how much is this going to influence them? And so far, so good. They're, right on point with everything. But at what point does a parent need to open their eyes? And how do they not feed the cancer, the addiction of the device in their hands all the time? That is always one thing that concerns me. Every time we go to a restaurant, every child in the restaurant has something in their hands. Every time we go everywhere, people are always walking with their head down. Driving is a big issue. It's a terrifying world we live in. But if you're now trying to parent in the world of this tech, but now you're trying to divorce in this world of tech, and the parents have different perceptions of what is appropriate, what is age appropriate, and also matching the child's ability to handle it. Some children are more resilient than others. As a psychotherapist and a parenting coach, how much of this new world we're living in influences parenting discussions?
Yeah, I think I have 6 answers to what you just said. That might take us a few hours, but I'm joking. But no, to try to give a summary, and then let's go from there, like of some of my thoughts from what you said is, I've spent a lot of time in the last couple decades doing this, trying not to be that guy up on a soapbox. waving my finger at people about anything, including technology. My son went to a Waldorf school from kindergarten to 12th grade. And I absolutely am so thankful for the experience. And it was so wonderful in so many ways, including this topic, and how we had agreements as parents in the class that our kids didn't do smartphones and they didn't do social media and they didn't do these things. And that was just so valuable. But some people in the Waldorf community can be a little up on a soapbox and waving their hands. And I just find that judgment is not helpful. Parenting is already hard enough, and feeling like you're being judged so much, especially moms. I find dads get some criticism, but moms get so much of it. It's mom's fault. And so I've spent so much time trying not to be that guy and trying to just explain how screens and technology and social media affect the things that we're trying to see in terms of outcomes for parents. So I've tried to keep it really, really practical, right? So on one side, there's secure attachment, the lens that I look at everything through, whether it comes to how to raise a child and what's most important. I call it attachment first parenting, where we do have consequences. We do have limits. We do say no. We're not just free range or something, only gentle parenting, which has become a big controversial thing. But we put the relationship first. And that's also my philosophy when it comes to couples, is that all couples come to me as a couples counselor with the same list of symptoms, pretty much. But an attachment first approach with couples is that it's the bond between them that is the problem, that the bond is not in the right place. And if we could restore the bond, the symptoms would mostly go away. So I know I'm being kind of far ranging, but I want to lay out the landscape. So as far as technology and social media and now AI goes, on the one hand, we look at how is this affecting the child's ability to attach to who they're supposed to attach to, which is their parents and other adults in our village. Does that make sense so far, Paulette?
Yes.
And the thing is as human beings, it's vulnerable to attach to human beings. It's difficult because people can let us down. People can change their mind. People can leave. And so it's way less vulnerable to pick up a phone and try to seek my attachment needs on social media. I worked with kids in group homes a couple decades ago, and I continued to do it when I started this work because I just liked the work. And MySpace came out while I was working with kids in foster homes, and they started asking me to go to the library all the time. And I'm like, oh my goodness, these inner city kids that are in foster, they want to go to the library. This is awesome. But they wanted to go to the library so they could be on MySpace, and because they had this fantasy that they had 2,000 friends. And it was a less vulnerable attachment. Does that make sense so far?
Yes, absolutely.
So
And you're
trying to
saying that
lay it,
attachment overall is healthy, but it's the attachment to the correct thing.
yeah, because if I'm your parent, I have kind of a biological and psychological imperative that even though I might not be perfect, I want to be there for you, and I want to try to protect you, and I want to try to lead you in a good way. And even though that might be an up and down journey, I have that commitment. There's nothing I wouldn't do for my son, nothing in the world. But your peers don't have that. Faceless, nameless people necessarily, right? Because your peers are just trying to grow up themselves, and they're not really responsible for you. But nameless, faceless people on the other side of the screen don't really have that imperative. And so they tend to be surface level attachments more, if that makes sense. And I'm not saying there's not exceptions, but so on the one hand, from a developmental psychology perspective, I'm looking at, are these kids getting, and that's the reason like my book has a tree on the cover with the deep roots, is can my child deeply attach to me and grow those roots into their other parent? And then on the other hand, a secondary thing after a deep connected, rooted child is the capacities and maturities that they need to thrive in life. Are they integrative? Can they weigh things out? Can they say, on the one hand, this, I don't want to do that, but on the other hand, I want to get the goal, so I want to do it? Are they emergent? Are they interested in things? Can they figure things out? Are they good learners? Do they not get bored easily? And then thirdly, the third main capacity I'm looking at is adaptive energy. Can they feel the frustration? Can they feel it and process it and get it out so that they're adaptive and resilient? These are all critical things. And so when I look at technology, I look at, is it helping or hurting those processes? And the thing is if your kid isn't deeply rooted, and if your kid doesn't have these capacities yet, technology and social media and peer interaction and even AI now tends to be a hindrance, because it short circuits those processes. And of course, we can get into more detail if you want, Paulette, but that's, like I started off with, I spent so much time trying not to be waving the finger. And I just think in the last couple of years, I'm still trying to be that way, but I'm more concerned. And I don't know if you know the book, The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, that came out last year. And it was a best-selling book for months and months, and he was all over media. He really does a good job of documenting that there are skyrocketing rates of anxiety and self-harm and depression amongst children. And I think technology in itself is not evil, but we have to use it properly. And my basic philosophy is, we have to have dinner before we have dessert. We want to see a child that has a secure attachment to those that lead them, the parents usually, but also that they have this brain that can do these things and this heart that can do these things. And then technology can be wonderful, but it's after that does that analogy make sense the way I'm saying it?
Yeah.
That was a very long answer, but I was trying to seed maybe some other, directions we could go.
No, I love the analogy of wanting to have dinner before dessert. Although I do have a little saying in my bathroom there where my clients go to that says, the voices want chocolate for breakfast.
Absolutely. And I tell people, I walked into my favorite pub locally, Russian River Brewing Company. It's a walk from my house in Santa Rosa, California, and it's a kind of a famous brewery. And I go there occasionally. I used to go more, but I go there occasionally just for the camaraderie and the village and the regulars and the people behind the bar that I've known for a long time. And I've walked in there a few times, and this is not unique to this place. It's generally, that is the vibe there. But I've walked in a few times and every single person was on their phone, right? And it's like, why are we coming to a gathering place to be on our phones? And I'm not telling you I'm totally above it. I've done it, right? But it's because it's easier to look at my screen than to turn to the person next to me that I don't know and just talk, And if that's true for adults, how much more susceptible are children to that, when they're still forming? And so, yeah, we can talk about how that plays out in marriage and divorce too. But one of the most common pointed questions that parents ask me, two or three of the main questions that I get, like as a psychotherapist, one of the most pointed questions you get is, okay, what do you think? Do you think I'm crazy? You'll get that a lot from people, or some version of that after the first appointment. Or parents ask me, do you think I'm screwing up my kid? I get that all the time. But one of the most common questions I get is, my kid is totally addicted to screens and social media. How do we put it back in the box? How do we change that? And I always say the same thing. It would be easier, when's the best time to plant a tree? 10 years ago, second best time today. It would be easier if you hold off on the technology in the first place and just wait until you see your child has this heart and this brain that is where we want it to be, and then we introduce it. But the second best thing is, make some decisions now, get on the same page now. And of course, we can go in a lot more depth than the trickiness of what happens when parents split up, because they're usually looking for reasons, or often looking for reasons not to agree with each other.
Well, as a psychotherapist, is there a best age to consider introducing it to children,
I
or
don't
is it age dependent?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think those things are arbitrary. Sometimes it's helpful if we get guidelines. And somebody says, like at my son's school, the agreement was, and I'm not saying this is right for everybody, but the agreement was these kids are not doing social media. These kids are not doing smartphones. They're not bringing phones to school until at least eighth grade. And being a Waldorf school, we had the same core group of kids and parents for first through eighth grade. And so his wonderful teacher, Miss Potoff, I consider it winning the lottery that my son had her as a teacher and guide for 8 years. I actually get a little emotional years later thinking about how amazing she was as a teacher. But every year we'd have a parent meeting at the beginning, and she'd say, "Okay, guys, we can discuss it, and if you have any problems with it, let's talk about it. But I really want us all to agree that we're not doing social media and we're not doing these things until at least eighth grade." And then, even then, I didn't think my son needed a smartphone. He just needed a phone for the things that you mentioned. Mom, I'm late. Dad, I need help. I didn't get the pizza one, but
You
I
didn't? Oh no.
but no, no, no. But that's a good
My
one.
kids
I
always
wish.
wanted food. It was always about food.
Oh, I would do that. I'm going to do that today. Text my fiance like, hey, bring me a pizza. That'll go well.
Well, when you're
But
12, that's what you want, food.
but no, to double back, I would just say you make your own decisions as a parent. You know your kid better than anybody. My son didn't care. Like honestly, like I grew up in San Jose, California, Silicon Valley in the 70s, right? I'm dating myself. But I was in the epicenter of technology. IBM had a hard drive facility down the street from my house. Apple Computer started there. My neighbor was a Apple and Atari computer programmer, so he had computers in his garage that we would go over and he'd let us use. His son was my age, and but when I was little, we didn't have smartphones and we didn't really go on computers, and computers were simple, so we played, right? And my son, we lived in Sebastopol, California, which is kind of like wine country. Half the kids at his school lived on a farm kind of thing. And so they would play. And my kid just really didn't even bring it up because he didn't. I think even if your school is not like that, it's just form a little group of parents. And I guarantee you they're all out there because I've talked to thousands of parents. Usually what I hear is, I don't want my kid around technology so much, but all the other parents are doing it, so I feel like we have to, right? But I'm hearing that from all the parents, you know? And so maybe you put together a little cohort of, hey, I just know with these 5 kids in my kids class that if I send my kid over to their house, they're going to play and they're going to create, right? And kids want to. I think for adults and for kids, in attachment terms, which attachment, science is the foundation of most of what I do, is people would prefer, like even teenagers, Paulette, like they would prefer playing a board game with their parent and having quality time over being on the phone. I actually mean that. That has been my experience. But when we don't have another person we know will be there when we want to talk, or we're having a hard time or whatever, or my parents, too busy or whatever, I use the phone as a substitute, right? So that's important to remember or to think about. But to get back to your actual question, I think it's not really about a particular age, it's a particular child. And that I see that on the one hand, I feel like if this child had a problem, they would come to me. If this child was struggling with something or needed attention, they would come to me or their other parent, or maybe their grandma or their uncle or their cousin, but they would seek human connection. If I see that, I feel better about the kid being able to use some technology. But also on the maturity side, are they good thinkers? Are they not easily bored? Are they able to feel their feelings? Because one of the hardest things, I'm a therapist. With my individual clients, with my coaching clients, and with my couples, one of the main topics is, can I feel my feelings and can I process them? And usually that means feeling yucky feelings and crying, which has to be part of the divorce journey too, is just accepting what you cannot change. The Elizabeth Kubler-Ross stages of grief. Like, most divorcing couples are in one of those stages of anger, denial, negotiation, going back and forth. We really need to get to acceptance. We need to get to where we go, okay, no matter what happens in the future, this is over. The thing I wanted is over. The dream of having this perfect marriage, and it's done. And anything that can grow out of that, including good new relationships and things, including sometimes people reconciling, only comes after the acceptance and the release. And so, getting back to kids, if I see a kid that can do that, I go, okay, that kid's adaptive, they're resilient. But if they can't do that, technology just becomes a thing where I don't have to feel my feelings, because I'm just going to watch another video, and I'm just going to play another video game, or I'm just going to go seek it somewhere. And it
And
just becomes an easy way.
I'm going to find a tribe of other people that also can't feel their feelings and process,
Exactly.
so that we all
Exactly.
feel like we can hold hands and commiserate with our inability to be human together.
Yeah. And, a lot of people, my mentor, Dr. Neufeld, Gordon Neufeld, wrote the book Hold On to Your Kids over 20 years ago. I got it when my son was like 1. Sought him out to try to get him to come and speak and train in my area. We became kind of pen pals there on email a little bit, and he asked me to be in his training program. But when people read his book, Hold On to Your Kids: Why Parents Need to Matter More Than Peers, one of the first things that they would bring up after reading it was the book and the movie Lord of the Flies, and how it was like this metaphor in a way for kids who were under, adults, and who were being raised and led by adults in their very nice English boarding school, I think it was. The adults were gone and they were on an island by themselves. And what do those kids do when they're on an island by themselves? And the idea was not that kids are evil or something, but for lack of proper direction and leadership, they started tribalizing, and they started like forming little cliques, and the kids who want to eat meat and have fun, and the other kids that were trying to be more right. But that was kind of a metaphor, I think, for peer culture and social media culture, done a long time ago, written a long time ago. But I think that's the situation. And so everything that I teach is about parents being good leaders, that they are not dictators, but they are good alpha leaders. They're mama bears, they're papa bears. And their main mantra that I teach parents to lean into, and I tried to lean into all the time, was, my main job is not to make you happy. My main job is to take care of you. And that can sound cold or can sound wrong. And believe me, I wanted my son to be happy. I want our kids to be happy. But if my main thing in my head is, I just want you to be happy, I'm going to make a lot of decisions that are probably not good for you and probably not taking care of you. I'm going to give you ice cream for dinner because you just really, really want it. Where a lot of times the right decision is saying no and helping you feel that no, because you need to work something out. Kids usually ask for crazy things when they kind of know they need you to set a limit, and you don't have to be a jerk about it, but you do have to be firm and compassionate about it and help them feel their feelings. So the alpha parent idea that everything I do is organized around is helping a parent to be a good papa bear, good mama bear, a good mother goose who leads their children. And in divorce situations, that's what I'm trying to appeal to. My parents divorced in a very messy way when I was about 13 years old. And in a lot of ways, it led to where I am now, because the court actually ordered all of us to go see a therapist because my parents were being so messy about it and so antagonistic that he just felt like we must be messed up. We must have problems because of how our parents were doing things. And I went and saw Dr. Marty Diner, who's since passed away, and I loved it. I thought it was so amazing to be able to go and talk, and it just planted the seed. I want to do that. I want to be a helper for kids. But then becoming a parent myself and being mentored by Dr. Neufeld, I kind of switched and went, no, I want to be the helper for the parent, because the parent is meant to be the answer for the kid, not some outsider. And I want to be the one in the shadows helping support the parents. And when it comes to, a lot of parents come to me because they're divorcing or they have divorced and they're not on the same page, and they decide to come and get on the same page by doing parent coaching for 90 days. And it's been very, very rewarding, because we can think the worst of people when it comes to divorce. But I find that most parents really do want what's best for their kid. They're just caught up in their own stuff, whether they're divorced or not. And they're caught up in their family of origin stuff and the things they don't know how to do. And parents tend to polarize. And I know I'm giving you very long answers, but obviously this stuff matters to me. But parents tend to polarize. And the most common polarization, whether a family's intact or not, is one parent is usually advocating for, these kids are having problems. It's clear they're having problems. Look at how they're behaving. It must be that they need more connection. They need more of us. They need more of our attention in a better way. And then the other parent, usually the first one's the mom, not always. And the second parent, often the dad, is like, they need more boundaries. They need more discipline. They need more, right? And my experience is they're both right. They just are polarizing because they think they're not listening to each other. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so one of them gets more entrenched in they need more attention, and the other gets entrenched and they need more discipline. And there's a dialogue and there's a way through of going, look, you guys are both right. It's just about attachment is supposed to come first. Relationship is supposed to come first. And if we're putting our kids in the middle and making them feel like they can't be healthily attached to both of us, that's not good for their attachment. That's not good. And that's going to set their compass off, and they're not going to be like in the right place. But then they do need limits, and they do need to learn consequences. We just need to not do it as a jerk. We just need to not yell it and scream it. We need to be firm, but also compassionate. And if we do it that way, it's not only better for our relationship, but it actually works better. It's actually more effective, because when you set limits that way, people actually respond to them, right? And so I try to depolarize couples, whether they're still together or whether they're divorced.
Beautiful. And it was a long question to a deep, a long answer to a deep question. And it was, well, I do want to remind everyone too, that the courts require is a hard word. I'm going to stick with it, that both parents always make decisions that are in the best interest of the minor child. Now, that is not always easy to determine what is in the quote unquote best interest, because if one parent has the personality or style that Todd mentioned on one end of the spectrum, and the other parent has a different perspective about discipline, rules, routine, structure, that way, where the other's more like hand-holding, connection, hugging, kissing, they do need both, right? It's a term of discerning and delineating what they need and when they need it. And that does take an effort. When you're parenting, you have to learn that together. Then when you're co-parenting, you're trying to do it in two separate households. Even though you're trying to do it congruently, they're like railroad tracks. They're on the same course, but separate. It's when you slip into parallel parenting and counter parenting, where there's oppositional forces, that leads us down that road of derailing for the image of the railroad tracks, that could lead to some parent alienation issues and name calling and finger pointing and blaming, and he did this and she's a that and he's all to fault because of A, B, C, D, and she's a you know what, and because of A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And so the child is sitting there going, so they either attach to one of them or reject both of them. And where do they go? Friends, social media, and bad, dark roads. So it is, I've seen it. In fact, I think you and I probably need to do a series of
I would
videos
love to.
on just where that goes. But I do want to close this conversation on what attachment science is. Now, I don't know if you can just define that and describe it, but because you've said it a few times, I know many people out there are like, what is he talking about? So can you
Yeah.
define what attachment science is?
Yeah, and it's really misunderstood out in the world sometimes. In academic circles, in psychological communities, there's nothing controversial about attachment science. It in a nutshell, it's the science of understanding that all things being equal, and things are not always equal, but kids have different socioeconomic situations. There's racial economic factors and things. There's how safe is my environment. But all things being equal, attachment science says the number one determinant in how children become secure in relationships, how they behave day to day, and how they grow into their greatest potential, the number one determinant is how secure they're made to feel in their primary relationships growing up. And that usually brings up a lot. And it usually brings up a lot with parents who think they have to be perfect. And they hear that definition and they go, well, I definitely screwed up my kid because I yelled at him the other day, whatever. It's really not that one dimensional. You don't have to be a perfect parent. You don't have to completely attune with your child at all times. In fact, in attachment studies, they found that the most secure relationships between mothers and children, fathers and children, the parents misattune about half the time. Like your kid turns to you to smile, to get a smile back from you, and you happen to look away right before it. The researcher would like check that off as they just misattuned. That wasn't right. But it's not about that. It's about over time, the number one determinant of how your kid grows into their greatest potential and how they're behaving is, do they feel like when they reach out and they say, Mom, I'm scared, I'm tired, I feel like I'm not enough. Do you love me? I feel like I'm too much. That in general, over time, they get the feeling, no, you are loved. No, you're not too much. No, your needs matter. How you feel matters. I might say no to what you're doing.
Sure.
I might say that's not great behavior. That's not what we do. But I am here for you and you can find me, And that takes thousands of reps over many years.
It
It's
isn't
not
that
a
one time.
it's not a today thing or I messed up this week or I had a bad week. And if you just try and you just try to stay on that path and you try to prioritize it and you don't just tell your kids what to do before getting their eyes first most of the time or getting that sense of connection. Like you and I, how long did we talk before we hit record? 10 minutes, 15 minutes? Because that's what you do. Hey, how are you, Paulette? We haven't met before actually like, hi, what do you do? What's your story? And we did that before we hit record. Like that, we kind of know that's what we're supposed to do. But we're busy and we have a lot going on and we take relationships for granted. So we just kind of tell our spouse what to do sometimes, or we boss our ex around a little bit and without even saying, hi, how are you first? Or our kid walks in, we walk in and our kid's doing something, right? So attachment is just like, hey, all around the world. And you have an international kind of background, Paulette. Like, I think one of your parents is French.
Yes.
Yeah, you don't. We were just in Paris for a couple of weeks last holidays. My fiance's sister lives there, and people famously know you don't walk into a French bread shop and say, "Hi, can I have a baguette?" You say, "Bonjour, comment ça va?" Pardon my accent. And you get that connection first. And if you don't do that, you're a horrible person. And they'll give you attitude, and then you'll say the French are rude. Well, their culture is, hey, business comes second. Let's get connected first. And that's how we're supposed to do it, right? And Dr. Neufeld really emphasized that attachment is an instinct. It's not thought out. If you and I are very close and we're connected right now, Paulette, you don't have to force me to do anything. Hey, Todd, can you do this for me? Of course. If I can do it, I'll do it. When we're connected, that's my instinct. But when we're not connected, which especially comes up when we divorce,
Correct.
okay?
Every day.
A lot of the time, now my instinct is to say no to you first,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And
There's
to
a real
push back
will to not
because
want.
I am trying to navigate separating from you and severing that attachment. Hopefully, we figure out a way to do it in such that something new can be born and something new can take its place where we can have a new relationship. But that's not usually happening in the beginning. And so I always recommend to people, hey, when I'm doing couples counseling, I tell people, like, look, I'm not trying to make you talk in a fake way. I'm just try not to blame, try not to point the finger, try not to tell the other person what their motivation is. Try to connect first. Try to like speak more from a vulnerable place. And that really applies, I think, to divorce situations too. It's like, hey, we don't always agree, but I know you're a good dad. Let's just try to find a way that I notice the kids do this. What do you notice? Okay, how do we work on that together? How do we both want to put the kids first? How, you know, and that sounds idealistic, but it is the best path that I've seen is if we can stay in that place. Did I answer your question
You
somewhere in there,
did.
Paulette?
You did. Thank you, Todd. This has been a wonderful conversation. I mean it. It's very timely too, with all that's been going on online lately. And check out Todd's book, The Calm and Connected Parent, an Attachment First Guide to Raising Resilient Kids in the Age of Screens and AI, coming out November
That's a
18th.
mouthful, isn't it?
Is it? It's a paragraph, but I'm okay with it. Now you should understand more of what that word attachment first means, that we've had this conversation and why it's part of the subtitle. So please check it out. I know I'm going to. Reach out to Todd. What's the best way for people to learn more about you, follow you, and work with
The
you?
simplest way is just www.transformativeparenting.com. I do some socials and things, although I haven't really put a lot of energy into that. I'm trying to do better. And we have a YouTube channel that I love. I started it when I was living in Japan, and I had a little extra time in the afternoons because of the time differences, and started shooting videos about the most common things that I hear, transformative parenting with Todd. And there's a masterclass on our website that gives a good introduction to the work. It's like 20 minutes long. I try to be as efficient as I could with that. But yeah, transformativeparenting.com. We put out an article once a week on our newsletter. I put it on LinkedIn as well. And yeah, no matter what the kind of level of interest you have, if you want to work with us personally or you just want some good free information, you can find it there.
Perfect. I have enjoyed this conversation. I hope you too have,
I,
everyone. As much
I
as
hope we can talk again.
yeah, there's a lot to talk about. I agree. I know that this book is going to be on my shelf. I've got my little closet over there. My resource guide. I open my French doors and say, which one would you like to read? So,
Nice.
um, I hope this was fun, everyone. Get the book. I'm going to. And reach out to Todd if you have parenting questions, concerns, or you
Yeah.
really just need an additional perspective on
Happy to answer any questions
parenting.
people have.
And as much as I'd like to make it the best, you got to make it better. I'll see you next time.